15 years. Before that, for 11 years, he worked for the convicts department also at the female factory up at Ross. Had a family. They lived in the house next to the big church called the Parsonage, one of those government houses. Now, apparently, he had 10 kids, by the way, busy house. Not unusual, though. 10, 12, 13 kids is often quoted in houses here. In 1870, at the age of 51, according to his medical records, which you do have a copy of, he had a lung infection or chest infection. Despite that, on a very cold, wet night, he was asked to ride up the peninsula to give the last rites to a dying convict at a workstation. Apparently, a tree had fallen across this bloke. He got on his horse that night, despite being unwell, rode all the way up there, got all the way back again that night. Early hours of the morning, he banged on the front door. His wife opens up the door, and there he is. He looks like a drowned rat. She puts him straight up the bed upstairs in that house, and he never gets out of that bed again. Several days later, he's dead from pneumonia. Buried here. Now, his family have to go. This is not their house. This is a government issue house. New minister's going to come in, so they have to go. You would think after 26 years with church and government, though, they would get some money, pension or whatever they call it back then. Nothing, not a cent. Takes letters from the Commandant and some of the officials here to get them a one-off payment, I believe something about 10 shillings. That's it. Thank you, bye-bye. Off they go. Now, if you'll believe the ghost stories, the first hauntings happened the very first night the new minister moved in. And they've been happening on and off ever since. Now, it's one of our favourite ghost stories, ghost tour houses. The only advice I would give to all of you, if you're here still late in the afternoon and it's a bit dark, I would advise you not to stand in a dark corner by yourself in that house. There are several documented cases of people feeling invisible hands go around their throat and try to throttle them in that house when it's dark. Maybe the Reverend George just doesn't like people entering the house where his family is so badly treated. Now we'll go away from the historical, back to the historical, shall we? So yes, if you do a ghost tour, go and have a look. Go and have a look at the parsonage anyway. When it gets a bit darker in the afternoon, it can be quite a creepy little house. So yeah, well worth doing. Mark Jeffrey's grave, we think is that little hollow there where he started to dig. It's probably been filled in a bit since. Just opposite the Reverend George, obviously.
Not a very godly thing to do.
No.
Be ghosts there and try and kill people.
Yeah, well, you know, his family's probably badly treated. No. So yeah, bit of revenge. Get out of my house.
Stand there for the good. I just take some random photos.
Dad, I told you ghosts only attack at night. George Eastman was the one who pets.
I have to say, you know, Colin probably mentioned the biggest cause of death for women here was obviously complications arising from childbirth, just not the medicine to handle those sort of problems. You have to remember these people are having 10, 12, 13 kids. You know, so the more you have, obviously, the bigger chance. Third row back, there's a stone there for a lady by the name of Harriet Chatfield. I will pass this one along. Harriet died at, by today's standards, a relatively young age of 39. This was in the process of giving birth to child number 13. So the odds just catch up to you after a while, obviously. Although they had doctors here, you have to remember that the medicine wasn't as good as it is today. Those two doctors they had to look after, 1,000 odd convicts, 700 boy convicts, civilians and soldiers. They're pretty busy men. Misdiagnosis was often a problem too in medical accidents. This stone here is for a young lad by the name of William Cart, the son of Edward Cart. He was a supervisor here. William, at 10 months of age, had a bad dose of constipation. Took him up to the doctor. The doctor wrote a script out for a thing called milk calomel, which is a bit like a laxative. She took it up to the hospital dispensary, somehow made a mistake, got something out of the wrong jar, gave him a gram of opium instead. 10 days later, this is where he ends up, unfortunately. For the boy convicts down that end, also accidents. There was a lad, or misdiagnosis, lad by the name of William Maddens, buried down that end. He reported a sick call over there one work morning. The doctor, he has a couple of puncture marks in his ankle, said his ankle's a bit stiff. Doctor says he's got a bit of rheumatism of the ankle boy, back to work you go. 24 hours later, he's dead. Doctor's final report said rheumatism of the ankle spreading to the heart. Looks more like a snake bite to me. So yes, some doctors are better than others. Now, you notice a whole heap of carvings on these stones, a whole heap of different stones. Once again, as I said, reflecting maybe the value they want to spend on. But the stones carved usually by convicts, and some of them are better than others. So a couple of convict memorial stones I love to show people, the ones with a little bit of an error on it. You have to remember, if you get one like that, you're stuck with it for all eternity, aren't you? Such is the fate of Benjamin Horne, sent here by the British government in 1842 to write a report on the boys' prison over there. His report's pretty scathing. Poor choice of land, no arable land, no fresh water, everything has to be rowed in from the adult convicts over there. Bad education. This is the system over there trying to teach these boys is hopeless. He said, yeah, let me stay on. I've written my report. I'll try to take over the school as a headmaster and make it better for the boys. They gave him the job. He lasted 3 months. He died of consumption. We call it tuberculosis. They probably had it when he took the job on. Now, he had no family they could trace in England, so the government has paid for this nice big stone. But there are at least 3 errors on it. First of all, his name, Benjamin. It's not Benjamin, it's Benjamin. Headmaster, School of Point Pure. There's nothing pure about the school. The word's pure, P-U-E-R. It's a Latin word meaning boy or youth. But if you didn't like your headmaster, perhaps you would write this about him: sincerely regretted by all who knew him. This is not a good way to be remembered. I have found out since that apparently because the government paid for this stone, they gave the job of carving the stone to 3 of the apprentice boy stonemasons over there. Maybe they didn't like Benjamin very much. They didn't have a spell check, did they? Come on there this way. Say another one, please. Yes.
Okay, that's a lot of gravestones.
I suppose we'd call this stonemason era number 2. We'll show you a good one in a moment. Stonemason era number 2. This one's to James Andrew McDivitt. But if you have a look carefully, his middle name's not Andrew, it's Andrew. He just forgot the N, so he put it in at the last minute. You know, you do that at school, you write the little N above the word.
Yeah.
Now, we checked our records, there's no James Andrew or Andrew McDivitt here at the time, but there is at the time a James Andrew McDavid, same age. I think probably his Scottish father went up to the stonemason and went, his name's James Andrew McDivitt, and that's what he got. Forgive my Scottish accent. He also likes full stops after every word. There's apparently a full stop, and he's not the best speller. Apparently young James is only 2 years old, not years old. Now, we have had his family's descendants here not once but twice in the last 16 years, and I'm told both times they came, they complained bitterly about the stone and asked us if we could fix it. Unfortunately, we don't do that sort of thing here. So I'm afraid young James, he's going to be stuck with that one for all eternity too. Does he care? Probably not. Oh, he's care. Come in this end. There's the punch.
That is a lot.
It's true. Every time you're at school, you always put that little word just above.
I know.
I used to do that too.
Those are a lot of graves.
Oh, I got 3 stories to fit in 3 minutes. I'm not too sure that's going to work. Come on, there's a stone right in the middle of the second row here. There's a whole heap of names on it. All those names end with the surname Staveley. So Francis Staveley came here as a soldier in the 63rd Regiment. He resigned from the regiment, retired from the regiment, married a lady by the name of Elizabeth. Together they had a number of kids here. He was here for about 30 years as an overseer, etc. During that 30 years, he lost 3 of his children. In 1846, he lost his 2.5-year-old son, John Thomas. Young John Thomas fell in a well up near the church and drowned. 5 years later, he lost his 5-month-old daughter, Julia. Young Julia, at 5 months of age, 5 years later, fell in a well and drowned too. Well. He lost his 18-year-old son, George, in 1870. No well involved as far as I know. This is one of the 2 family plots we have on the island. You would have to say deeper, shallower as they go. Fairly complete stone too. Headstone, the little one down the bottom. We don't do them much anymore. These are called footstones. They just mark the end of the grave. So most of those are gone. I'd say most of these had footstones. It's probably easy to souvenir a footstone rather than a headstone, so some of these disappear. All these big ones along the front are the soldiers. British soldiers are here from 1830 to 1863. Most of these soldiers are privates. They would spend 8 to 10 years away from home, go to Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, India, Afghanistan before they get back home. They've got families. Their families would be smart to stay home in England and wait for them to come back. Over here in the barracks, if you're a private, for every 100 soldiers, and about 250 at one stage of that rank, only 12 were allowed to have their wives live with them. They had to be approved by the officers' wives as suitable women. What does that mean? They'll do the officers' wives' laundry and cleaning without complaint. But they had less privacy in their barracks over there than the convicts had in their poky little cells, so why would you live here? Pretty lonely life for these guys. Not that well paid either. They usually come from working class poor backgrounds, same as the convicts. How do they get such nice big expensive stones? What would happen is their mates would hold a faux auction. They'd sell off their military gear. They'd get some money for the stone, and that way also they'd keep the military gear with that regiment. It wouldn't be transferred out once the soldier's dead. So it achieves 2 purposes in one go. At least they get a nice stone, buried a long, long way from home. Come to my I'll tell you about one of these nice stones that I've got tonight.
Whoa.
You're right.
I was stranded on an island. Dangerous.
So I promise you, it's a good monumental stonemason. This stone is interesting. It has a rope edge border. About 12 up that side have rope edge borders too. It also has two names on it: William Mansfield and T. Pickering. Anyone want to hazard why? Guess why? Probably already given you a hint anyway.
Group grave.
No, not in this case. I'll tell you. No, not in this case either. Exactly. He is the monumental stonemason that did this stone. We have 21 stones we can track in here. 13 of them have his little trademark rope edge border. But if he doesn't do that, he just puts his name, T. Pickering, or his initials, TP. So it's pretty easy to track. The other incident is Mansfield and Pickering were workmates. They knew each other quite well. They used to get caught breaking and entering into people's homes together. So they knew each other. The story of Mansfield is this. He basically dies while he's here at Port Arthur. He got sent here for 14 years though for theft. He stole a waistcoat and some clothing from his dad. His dad dobbed him in to teach him a lesson. Unfortunately, the courts also taught him a lesson, sentencing to 14 years transportation. You're probably not surprised either. William and his father parted on very poor terms. When he died, Pickering made the stone, but he would not have paid for it. We think his father sent the money across, maybe as a bit of remorse after hearing about his son's death. Very nice stone. If you compared this to the ones you might have seen around the other side, it's by far the largest and most intricate piece of work. So we think he's put a bit more work and effort into his mate's stone. What happened to Pickering? Well, unlike his mate, he did eventually get out of prison. He moved to New South Wales and became a monumental stonemason up there. Apparently a very good one. So there you go. The boat is back. Pickering, yeah. Thomas Pickering is his name. Sorry? No, he's the one that got out of here. Oh, yeah, he had to be, I think. He's very, very old. You're talking about mid-1800s. What's he? 1840s, 60s. Guys, we're going to make our way back to the boat.